Hey, our true crime junkies. It's been about 30 years since one of the deadliest acts of domestic terror in American history. On April 19th, 1995, at approximately 9:02 a.m. in the morning, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols blew up the federal building in downtown Oklahoma City, changing the lives of the nation and the city, killing 168, injuring many, many more.
Mm.
Also, on today's show, let's say, Solomon, we're going to talk about the cult that turned deadly, along with a bomb that was thrown into a mansion of a mayor in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
And we're also going to talk about a suspected New England serial killer
she's
that's,
another one.
that's targeting vulnerable women throughout the New England area. Solomon, it's good to be here.
Of course. Good to be here too, Frankie. I'm ready to rock and roll and really get to the show because we got a lot to cover today.
Oh, do we ever? Do we ever? I want to just, before we get started, I definitely want to thank everybody that tuned in last week live and watching the replays for both our live show and our live after show. It was tremendous. It was awesome. The feedback has been wonderful.
Yes.
We're definitely leveling up. We're going in different directions with the show. Solomon and I have been meeting on the back end, talking about merchandise and all kinds of things, but I won't waste much more time because we do have a lot to cover today. Solomon, Oklahoma City. You were 6 years old when this happened. I was a junior in high school, so I'm a little bit more
Seven. I was a little
seven.
older.
Fine,
I was watching Power Rangers.
could have been 6.5. But
Okay.
anyways, you were 7 years old. I was a junior in high school when this happened. So for me, I remember it like it was yesterday. Still, at the time, it was the biggest thing on the news. It was essentially the first 9/11, really, if you want to think about it,
Yeah.
where building was bombed. And this happened after the first attempt on the Trade Center in 1993. So it
Correct.
seems to be 2 years after that. So why don't you start off with what you call your deep dive on this and what you found out? Because I let you do a little bit of the research on it so you could learn about it because
Of
you were
course.
a youngster when that all
I was a
happened. So go ahead,
youngster.
Solomon, take over.
Yeah. So I've done some deep dive into this horrible massacre that happened in 1995. This was the worst domestic attack in U.S. ground by a U.S. citizen. And this goes all the way back to April 19th, 1995, 9:02 a.m., where a rider truck filled with explosives detonate outside the Alfred Murrah building, federal building in Oklahoma City. So, mind you, this was a second huge attack in the 90s. Prior to that, we had the first attack on the World Trade Center, like you were mentioned, Frankie, and then this happened not so long afterwards. So, just a little clips that from my deep dive. Unfortunately, 168 people were killed and over
Yeah.
680 others were injured. But Frankie, 19 of those victims were children in a building, in a daycare that was next to the building, or actually that was part of
It
the
was in the
building.
building, the
It was in
second
the
floor.
building. Oh
Yep, it
my
was in the
God.
building. Yep. And I'm just going to put a picture up here to those of you that don't know anything about this, and this might be before their time or just something they didn't know about. This is the building right here. It took
Mm,
off a third of the building. So the Ryder truck was parked right out front of the building. You can sort of, if you use your intelligence, see where the vehicle may have been parked to the amount of explosives that were used to
mm.
just take off the front half of that building, and everybody in that front half of the building or that third of the building just jeepers. I don't even know what to say to that. It's
It's
just
horrible,
very
man.
saddening. But yeah, so that's the building. That's the aftermath of what Mr. Timothy McVeigh. Oh, and little snip. Um, Timothy McVeigh, unknown. Well, Solomon didn't know this before I told him before we got on today live that Timothy McVeigh lived about 15 to 20 minutes north of where I grew up and where he went to school in Buffalo, New York. So this
Insane.
one is particularly a little more closer to home,
Closer
if you
to
want to say
home.
that.
Yeah.
For me, because I was a junior in high school, Solomon probably wasn't even in Buffalo at the time, but just to
No.
know that you were, in the dorms 20 minutes south of where this clown
Yeah.
grew up, it's just one of those things that amazes me to this day. That and I always make jokes about that county, that people from that county in New York either grow tails, have 3 ears, or have some sort of severe mental
Jeez.
disorders because of the toxic remains of Love Canal back in the 70s in Niagara Falls. And I always believe that.
Yeah, that's another one. We need to do a show on that, because that's a talk about true crime. The Love Canal, the
Yep.
atrocities that occurred there.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, that's a whole another thing. But
Well, I mean, the movie Aaron Brockovich was sort of in the same scope of that. That's a true
right,
story. And
yeah,
people till this day, Solomon, in the 70s, nearly 50 years later, are still waiting to get paid. I mean, some of them have since
mm,
passed from the illnesses, and there's a lot of people still waiting to get paid from that. And they've rebuilt houses in those very same areas, claiming once again that it's a safe area, and people gobble them up because they're cheap homes and they're beautiful homes until their
right.
basement walls start leaking green ooze. Then they'll maybe figure it out. I
God.
wouldn't take a free apartment in that area. I wouldn't buy a house in that area. I know people that have and that do, and I'll say it
And
right
they
to their
took
face.
the
You're
risk.
idiots. You're
Yeah.
idiots. If you buy a house on a former toxic waste dump and you think that it's safe, you deserve everything you get. And if people want to message in,
Mm,
comment on whatever platform you might be listening on, Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, definitely message in if you disagree with me, or shoot an email to info@rawlive.com and let us know what you think.
yeah. Well, not to go too deep into that. I mean, for someone to intentionally buy a house in that area, they must have been in a situation where they were in a bind. That's the only reason why I could think of someone going that far, knowing that, or maybe they just didn't know the severity of it. But I digress. But going back
I
to
love
the
that word. I digress.
digress.
You know why
Yeah,
they bought those houses in that area? Because at the time it was, labeled a new development,
sure. Yeah.
and, a little bit above blue collar in a tourist area, Niagara Falls. And the houses were beautiful for that time era. And people were told that, this had all been contained, that it was just nothing to worry about. And then everything happened. And then
Mm,
we took a field trip through there in high school for an environmental class. It was like a ghost town. It was really creepy to see, driving
wow.
down streets, lawns overgrown, houses boarded up, and then 30 years later they got all brand new houses there again. Like, do you think this isn't going to happen again, folks?
Mm, that's I have so many more questions with that, but
Mm.
we'll save that for another time.
Yeah, we won't go too much off track, but
Yeah.
anyways, that's my belief. Anyone that lives in that county has problems. That's where we were going with that. So, anyways, back to what you were saying, Solomon, before I
Yeah.
so
So
rudely cut you off.
no. So another interesting part in this whole Oklahoma City bombing, this is going back to the man responsible, Timothy McVeigh. Of course, there's Terry Nichols, and then there were some other people that was also involved with this. But Timothy McVeigh was like the main person that people look at when it comes to this bombing. So a little bit of information about him: he was a Gulf War veteran that turned into the anti-government extremists, and a lot
Mm,
of it is due to what happened in Waco, and what he believed was that his motive was a revenge for what he saw as the government overreach with Waco and Ruby Ridge, which I'm not too familiar with Ruby Ridge, but with Waco, the biggest thing that I recall, and this happened a year before, I think it was in 1994, if I'm
mhm.
not mistaken, Frankie.
I
And
can elaborate a little bit on that.
yeah, please.
He had a grudge with the federal government because the federal government, in his eyes and in his views and his group of people's views, invaded a private community that had guns, and they were living within their rights of the law and the First Amendment and all that other Second Amendment and all that stuff, and they barged in and disrupted their way of living. And Timothy
Right.
McVeigh took offense to that, and over the course of the next couple years, got together with Terry Nichols, and this is Terry Nichols, just to those of you, I mean, the guy wearing
Yeah.
those glasses of the '90s, by the way.
Mhm.
Where him and Terry Nichols got together with a group of other people to put this thing together and to execute one of the deadliest attacks on American soil by our own people. And
Now, one thing about that, Frankie, is with Waco, I do recall that they had the military, well, they had ATF, the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. They were involved in that. And they actually
FBI,
had
ATF,
tanks. Yeah, at the FBI, they had tanks. There was fire. I remember seeing some images of it. And unfortunately, there were children there that were lost. And it was such a horrible, horrible thing that occurred. Now, one thing I will say about Waco was that Waco kind of like it was talked about and then it kind of just
well,
faded out a bit. I mean,
that's the government wanted to hide it. And what they did is they took tanks that had, excuse me, these like arms that would poke through the side of the wood building and shoot tear gas in to try to get them to all come out. And I'm not sure if it was ever disclosed on how the fire started, but I'm guessing because you're out in the middle of Texas, dry, no rain, and very, very, very flammable wood, a spark from one of those tear gas guns or even someone from inside was, told to light the fire and to go out that way as a mass suicide almost. But that was a big mess. There's movies and documentaries about that, and there's they and Timothy McVeigh and company held a grudge against the federal government because of that. And because of that, 168 people had to give up their lives on April 19th, 1995. And what a shame. Take your beef to the streets, start a march, start a protest, write your governor, write your legislators. Don't go blow up a fucking building. Sorry, I used the F word. To those of you that don't like my swearing, I apologize. But that, come on. I mean,
it's sickening. It is sickening because, what did these children have to do with it? What did these people that was just going about their day, getting a cup of coffee, just, it was just a regular day. And then this guy decided to take away lives because of his beliefs of what he felt was right. And I think that part was awful. I think that part was messed up, that he just decided to be the judge and the executioner all at the same time. Oh, judge, jury, and executioner.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. So
I was gonna correct you, but I didn't have to.
He was gonna correct me. Yeah. So McVeigh, just go up to speed with this. McVeigh was arrested just 90 minutes after this all happened. And the funny thing about it, Frankie, was that he was stopped because I think he didn't have any a license plate on.
He didn't have a license plate.
Yeah,
nope.
right.
And they let him go.
Right. And no. That was the part that kept him. That's why he was arrested. Yeah.
Right. And they had a hard time holding him.
Right? So he was actually about to go to see the judge and I guess give him the fine or whatever that was supposed to be. And literally that was when the FBI and the people were finding out like, yep, this Timothy McVeigh, he's involved. And literally, if that would have been done 30 minutes later, he would have been gone. And who knows what would have happened, right? I still believe they would have found him, but who knows what other destruction he would have had. Because if he was willing to do that, who knows what he would have done, what else he would have done. So, they arrested him, and then he was eventually executed in 2001. His co-conspirator, Terry Nichols, remains in prison. And then there was a third person, I don't recall the name, but it looked like he flipped on these
He
two,
flipped
right?
because he had an option: flip or go to prison with them. So
Right.
he shared his involvement. I didn't do too much research on that, but there was like video of a documentary of news media trying to get words from him, and he was taken off in his Jeep.
Right.
So he had knowledge of it and
Yeah.
refused. And that was his role in it. He had knowledge that these guys were doing that, but he didn't do anything about it. I think that's the extent of his involvement. So he was able to escape any sort of prison time or jail time, but he was definitely under the spotlight for a few minutes because of that. If I knew that two people were going to do something so heinous, I would definitely call somebody. I mean, there wouldn't be any question in my mind, but
Yeah.
it was a sad, sad day for a lot of people. And it's funny. I'm going to share a quick clip, and just everybody keep in mind, we don't own the rights to any of the audio and video content that we're playing. This is actually a song. To those of you that don't remember, there's a band called Live, and they wrote a song or took one of their songs that they had written, and this was the song that was sort of dedicated to all of this happening, and it's called Lightning Crashes. So I'm going to play a quick minute of it if I can figure out how to do it. It was just one of those things that this, for some reason, songs play a lot of I can't find it. Anyways, I can't find it. Anyways, this Lightning Crashes by the band Live. I had the screen share set up here and it's not working now. So anyways, we'll leave that one alone. But I was lucky enough to find a clip of Timothy McVeigh giving an interview on one of these shows in the year 2000. You said he was executed in 2002, was it?
2001.
So this was a year prior to his execution. This
I think
video here.
And I think this happened, his execution happened before 9/11. It was on the same year, but I think the execution happened maybe around the summer or something. And then unfortunately 9/11 happened.
I lost that one too. So I guess we're not sharing that. I don't know what that is right there. Yeah, so I had a great video picked out. But you know what? That's probably telling us not to play it because of copyright infringement. So maybe that's why it's not allowing us to play it. But definitely look up the band Live and the song Lightning Crashes. And I really wish I could find that YouTube video of Timothy McVeigh with his little pre-execution video of, I think it was 60 minutes, maybe.
Right. I think it's right here. Hold on. It's right here.
Okay, folks, we did find the video clip of the 60 Minutes episode that was featured, I think, in 2000 of March, just a year prior to this monster being put to death. And just again, to give you a little bit of an idea of this guy could be your neighbor, or an ex-friend, a schoolmate, somebody you work with, and to hear his soft-spoken voice, he's very, very, very convincing that he might not be a monster. So we're going to go ahead and play that for you real quick here. And again, we don't own any of the rights to this. It is a clip from the show 60 Minutes, and it is on YouTube. We don't own no rights or anything to the audio and video.
Oklahoma City bomber.
Maybe one of the benefits of me talking to you today is that you'll see that maybe not everything is true that you've heard about me.
For example, what's not true?
Well, am I pure evil? Am I the face of terror sitting here in front of you? Or am I able to talk to you man to man?
Most people in this country think you are the face of evil, don't they?
They do. But sitting down here now, and let me make clear, I'm not sitting here trying to influence you. And I'm not putting on a game face. I'm not conning anybody. I'm just being me. And
wow,
maybe people will listen.
Right there. Maybe people will listen. If you can't find that disturbing, those words right there alone, that's disgusting.
So even to the day of his execution, he was denying it.
He wanted people to listen to his message.
Mm-hmm.
And he's trying to convince people that he wasn't trying to influence anybody. What do you mean?
I don't know.
Right to the very
That-
last second, you're trying to say maybe people will listen. That's somebody that's where he belongs. He's where he belongs.
Yeah, he was gun ho to his beliefs, and he wanted people to. He was going to die on those beliefs. So that basically what it was going to be, and he had to kneel for it. So Frankie, sometimes you have people that are so gun ho with their beliefs that there's only but so much you could do to really change their beliefs, and this is the most extreme version of this. I mean, well, one of the most extreme ones. I mean,
It's disturbing.
it is very disturbing. Yeah.
And I still say it's disturbing in the way that I grew up 20 minutes south of this guy.
I know.
This guy that went into the military to defend enemies, domestic and or foreign, and he ends up becoming one of the most prolific domestic terrorists in American history. That's what sickens me the most is where did he get this from? I mean, what did the federal what did the Waco have to do with him personally? I mean, he could feel the way he wants to about bearing arms, and his rights weren't taken away. Nothing was happening to him that was affecting his life, but he felt the need to get back at the government because of something he had nothing to do with. He had nothing to do with
nothing at all.
The Waco event directly. He had no connection to that at all, but he acted in their defense, and that's where this domestic terrorism thing becomes really scary.
I agree.
People, essentially, I don't want to say this, but not minding their own business. Is that a good way to put it, or is that sort of a little off?
That's one way of looking at it. I mean, this was a guy that had this belief that everything that the government was doing was so bad that he felt like he had to make this horrible decision to cause harm for this grandiose belief. So for him, he believed that anything that he was doing was right in the name of whatever that was, and of course we're going to do a deeper dive later about him. But one thing about him, Frankie, was that he served in the Gulf War, right? And then afterwards, it did look like the Netflix documentary. And by the way, there was a Netflix documentary that came on about the Oklahoma City bombing. It was the day before the 30th anniversary.
Yep.
So if you have a Netflix account, watch it. It's very good. It's very sad. It's hard to not be emotional. I'm not gonna lie, because it's from the victim's end and the victim side. And again, you had the youngest victim was 3 months old. I mean, like,
that's
nuts. What are you gonna do? Like, it's hard to. Even though I'm a therapist, I've been doing this for, I've been a therapist for over 10 years. I mean, we're not robots. I mean, we're humans, So, when you hear things like that, it's awful. And I think that this was one of the most gruesome things that ever happened before, right before 9/11. This was the thing, right? It was gruesome. It was awful. It was horrendous.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a part on the Netflix documentary where there was a doctor. He was I think he was he was a emergency response doctor, and he was there on call.
Oh, you're talking about a doctor. He was doing mass triage.
Right.
And oddly enough, I did some light training. I'll put it. I don't want to misrepresent the training I received when I was a former first responder myself, but mass triage is got to be one. I've never had to do it, so I can't speak from experience, but I can only imagine having to go body to body saying hospital, no, and different color codes, and to do a mass triage of who goes to the hospital, who's not going to make it. Imagine.
Yeah. That's what it was.
Yep. And this doctor was called to the scene to do this mass triage. So he would literally, it was like the opening, if you remember the movie Saving Private Ryan, where they had the doctor rolling person to person saying, no, morphine, good, whatever, mass triage.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine having to be that guy. That's
what it was. It was to a point because during during that whole thing, they of course had paramedics, they had emergency, they had firefighters, they had everybody trying to get people that was still in the building. So in the Oklahoma City bombing, you had the Ryder truck that was filled with these explosives. So the explosive was from the outside, it was just so strong that it caused a third of the building to be destroyed, right?
Well, their hopes was that it would take the whole building down, and it didn't. It took a third of it.
It took
but
a third
yeah,
of
you're
it.
right. They had such a I mean, it's like a powder keg, right? All those
Something
explosives
like
in the back of a truck, and then
yeah, I think it was ammonium nitrate, I believe.
Yeah, I wouldn't know the chemicals.
Yeah.
I haven't made bombs in a while, so I don't remember.
Yeah. Frankie,
not to be funny.
Right.
Don't say bomb on an airplane. Bomb, 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 bomb.
Don't do that. So with that, he did this, and you had many people lost their lives. So with that, they brought in the paramedics, they brought in everyone, and then they were trying to get this one victim out, right? So she was stuck in all the rubble, the concrete. Actually, it was still falling. Now check this out. While they were going in, one of the slab of concrete fell and hit one of the people trying to go in and save them, and struck her, and naturally, unfortunately, she lost her life from that. I mean, it was pure chaos. And then the woman, they were trying to get her out, and then
they thought there was another bomb.
Yes,
and then
said,
she had to
everybody
wait.
Get out.
Yep, and she had to wait there.
She had to wait there,
looking up through a pile of rubble, hoping that her rescuers would come back, and they did. Yes. I watched that documentary actually the night before last, and those of you who have Netflix, definitely check it out if you want to get a better idea of what Solomon and I are talking about tonight. We're obviously not going to go as deep as the documentary will. Right. We're not a documentary show. We're a crime through time show. So we just kind of dabble with topics that are trending at the moment.
Sure.
But yeah, that day is definitely a day I'll never forget. Just like 9/11, there's just certain days you don't forget.
Yeah.
You remember where you were. I still remember where I was when OJ went on his 30-mile-per-hour high-speed chase in California.
30 miles per hour. I remember 9/11.
Going 30 miles an hour, and there's like a force of police just following him really slowly. Like, did they ever think to maybe do like a pit maneuver on the guy? Like,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I remember 9/11. I was 14 years old, and I'd never forget. I was in the 8th grade, and they said that, hey, we have to get everyone out. School is out early, and we didn't know why, what was going on. And I think I was 13 when it happened. And we had to leave, and we didn't know why. And it was because the first plane hit, and then once everything happened, we were out of school. I think we were out of school for a couple of days. Mind you, I grew up in Queens, New York, so 9/11 was very close to me, as it was in Manhattan. Still far enough, but it still landed a huge impact to
you could probably see
New Yorkers. I mean, if you go close to the city, I mean, you can. There was a lot of things that occurred that took almost a decade to clear up in that, in Manhattan. But yeah, it was a horrible time. And even though I wasn't, I was still young for Oklahoma City, I still remember 9/11 as, one of the most horrible things that occurred, because I never forget where people were. That was when cell phones were starting to come in, like starting to get more popular.
Phones, social media. Well, social media. Well, social media.
No,
wasn't around yet.
It wasn't around yet. So the big thing, I still remember those big phones, the big flip phones, the walkie-talkie, the brick phones. Yeah.
Zach Morris brick phone. Say by the
Yep. Yep, that was still a thing, but it was starting to die out because the new phones, like the iPhone, was about to. I think it just came out or it was about to come out. Don't
I
quote
don't
me
know.
on that. But
I won't.
but yeah, it was a horrible time, and the city was in chaos. Of course, everyone else in the U.S. probably remember when President Bush was reading a book for a I think it was elementary school
In Florida.
and in Florida, yes, and then Secret Service, whispering in the ear what happened, and he just had this huge pause, and then he just continued reading because what do you do when you hear something like that?
When they say not to panic, and he's the commander in chief, and the worst thing he could have done was panic in that situation, and he showed great restraint, and you could see it in his eyes
did.
that he was scared.
Yeah,
When you're, when someone whispers in your ear, "We're under attack," and you're in a elementary school, a group of kids. I mean, for you to have to carry on through that, but I do have the picture of when Timothy McVeigh was. This is actually a real famous picture. I don't know why, but there's always those pictures of when things happen that are infamous
Yeah.
pictures, and this is the infamous picture of him being marched.
yes,
Right
Mhm.
there, marched over to the courtroom, or that was actually after he was arrested and arraigned for being. I mean, you can see the FBI there has a hold of him, but I mean, he just has such a no remorse. I mean, you can look at that guy's eyes and just see no
None,
remorse
none
whatsoever.
whatsoever.
None whatsoever to doing this, and that's just he is where he belongs by all stretches.
Yeah,
But anyone interested in definitely hearing more about this story, definitely check out the Netflix documentary. Like we said a gazillion times already, and really get a real grasp on it. A lot of our listeners and followers might not even remember that day. The only reason we brought it up is it is trending right now that it is the 30th anniversary as of the 19th. And it is, Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time where we are. So it's a little after that anniversary, but it's safe to say 30 years later.
yes.
But Solomon, what's next on the agenda that we covered? The Oklahoma City bombing. It's just one of those things that's sad and people can definitely take a look at it. We were talking a little bit in the last couple of days about this weird cult that you found. And I don't know how you find these stories. I do got to give you credit. It must be that bookcase behind you of all the weirdness stories. This cult that turned deadly. Why don't you talk a little bit about this cult? Not to change directions completely, but
So with this cult is called the Zizian cult.
Zizians. What?
Zizians, and
Zizians.
they are against AI. They are vegans. There's a lot to this cult, and unfortunately, there were some alleged murders that was involved with this cult. I have a clip that we can check out so we can do a little bit of a deeper dive on them.
Do it up.
So, yes. So let's hear.
Let's see what the Zizians got to say.
A doorbell camera captured audio of a car pulling up, a voice shouting "Mom," and a struggle before gunshots rang out. Police questioned Zajko but did not initially charge her. 3 members of the alleged radical vegan Zizian cult have been arrested. Maryland officers brought in Jack Ziz Lasota, the alleged leader of the group, along with Michelle Zajko and Daniel Blank on February 16th.
The Zizians have been tied to 6 killings across 3 states.
I would describe some of the crimes that they're accused of as being demonic, you could say.
The trio appeared in front of a judge days after their arrest and were all held without bail. Lasota at one point interrupted the judge to say he would starve unless he was given vegan food in jail. So, who are the Zizians? Here's everything you need to know.
This has all the makings of a Netflix cult docudrama. These Zizians appear to be a group of mostly transgender computer scientists who met online, united in anarchist beliefs, including radical veganism, and turned violent.
In 2016, Lasota, a transgender woman and computer programmer in the San Francisco Bay Area, began blogging under the online persona Ziz, sharing intricate and often meandering theories. The group is involved in practices including unihemispheric sleep, a state similar to hypnosis where people sleep with one eye open. The practice is intended to demonstrate that the brain's two hemispheres are separate identities that, according to Lesota's blog, often desire to kill each other. Lesota and 3 others were arrested at a 2019 protest where they donned hoods and Guy Fawkes masks while protesting a Berkeley rationality and cognitive bias nonprofit. They called it a protest against sexual misconduct within rationalist organizations.
Whew.
Hmm.
How
What do you
about
say to that?
Well,
The
Frank,
Zizians. I've never
Zizians.
heard of the Zizians. Sounds like a cartoon, like the Jetsons. Wow.
Where do you begin, right?
Well, I have been saying for months, if not the last couple years, at minimum, that AI scares the hell out of me. Because, and here's a really good reason on why AI scares me. This cult that formed via the internet and slept with one eye open. I mean, how do you do that?
I don't know. I
Do you
think
use,
I've
like,
heard
tape?
fish. I think fish do that. I think I've heard of fish. They sleep with one eye open or something.
I mean, I'm not laughing at the
Dolphins?
situation, but like these
No.
jerk offs, like, oh, I will refuse to eat unless you feed me a vegan menu. Well, then starve, dummy. That's the point where I would be. Starve, don't eat. We're giving you what we're supposed to give you to eat. But then again, in prison, they can't let you starve. They have to put a feeding tube in. It's like all these rules that they have. You would know more about that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there are rules now. They do have to in prisons. If you have a diet restriction, they do have to abide to it. Now, that doesn't mean that they would get like a gourmet vegan meal. A vegan meal could just be lettuce and that's it.
Give them the loaf. Just give them the loaf. That's all
Yeah.
vegetarian. Well, I don't know. They mix it together with egg. That would be
Egg,
non-vegan.
Right.
Give them the non-egg version of the loaf. You want vegan? Here you go.
Onion's vegan. Just a whole onion. Call it a day.
Here's your vegan diet. Here's an onion. Hope it makes you cry while you're eating it.
Well, I mean, this cult have done some really horrible things, and apparently they were involved in some murders. So this is what's trending right now. And I didn't go into more. There's more to it. I don't know, Frank, if we have time to go more into the clip or.
I mean, yeah, go ahead for a minute or two. Why not? I mean, if we go a little over, that's fine. I just think that we should definitely get a little bit more information on these weirdos, because from what I found, it says it's like if NXIVM had a TikTok budget. So you're gonna have to explain that to me, because you're the TikTok master of their show here. We got the mental health expert / TikToker, Solomon.
Right.
Take it away, Solomon.
The NXVI, that group, I'm not too familiar with it, but I only thing I do know that it's another cult that is that has similar views but not the same. But let's just dig a little deeper with the video and get a little bit more of an understanding with these people.
Kick it off.
By 2020, the Zizians had established a base of sorts in Vallejo, California, first living on a boat and then in box trucks on a property owned by landlord Curtis Lind. He didn't charge the group rent during the pandemic, but once he did request some payment, the Zizians refused to pay up and leave despite eviction warnings. Lind, frustrated with non-payment and growing tensions, gave them a final deadline, November 17. 2 days before that deadline, on November 15, 2022, Lind was attacked. According to police reports, one of the Zizians, Emma Borhanian, swung a sword at him, partially blinding him. Lind, acting in self-defense, shot and killed Borhanian. Local authorities arrested 2 Zizians, Alexander Leatham and Suri Dow, charging them with murder. Weeks later, the Zizians scattered. Some traveled across state lines, with Lesota, Michelle Zajko, and others reappearing in Pennsylvania. And more murder followed.
An elderly couple that were killed in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, were shot execution style in their homes on New Year's Eve.
Police found a gruesome scene. Richard and Rita Zajko, Michelle's parents, had been shot to death. Authorities quickly focused on Michelle Zajko, who had a rocky relationship with her parents. A doorbell camera captured audio of a car pulling up, a voice shouting "Mom," and a struggle before gunshots rang out. Police questioned Zajko but did not initially charge her. Instead, she was arrested weeks later for obstruction and trespassing in an unrelated incident while hiding out in a Pennsylvania hotel with Lesota. Both were soon released. By January 2025, the Zizians had returned to California, and Curtis Lind, the landlord who had barely survived the sword attack, was still prepared to testify against the group. On January 17, 2025, Lind was found murdered in his home. Authorities charged another Zizian, 22-year-old Maximilian Snyder, with the killing. Prosecutors alleged Snyder was sent to kill Lind specifically to prevent him from testifying.
Jeez.
2 days later, the Zizians' activities took an even deadlier turn. On January 20th, 2025, U.S. Border Patrol agent David Mayland stopped a suspicious vehicle in Coventry, Vermont. A car connected to Felix Bockholt and Teresa Youngblood. Moments later, gunfire erupted. Mayland was killed in the shootout. Bockholt also died at the scene. Youngblood was shot and wounded, but survived. Authorities quickly linked the handgun back to the Zizians. It was bought by Michelle Zajko, who was still a suspect in the murder of her parents. By February 16, 2025, law enforcement had gathered enough evidence to make a move. Now, with Lesota and key members behind bars, authorities are piecing together the full extent of the group's crimes. Cases are unfolding in multiple states.
Holy cow.
Like, what
So,
the heck is going on with those people?
yeah.
They all
that's
just
wild.
look like aliens.
Yeah.
The Zizian aliens.
It's
The
a
aliens.
mess, man. I mean, you have this going on, and then Frankie, you heard about the New England serial killers or serial killer?
I think I kind of brought that up to you the other day when we were talking that there is a suspected New England serial killer, and what's going on, excuse me, is several women have been found dead across the Massachusetts and surrounding states, some dumped in rural areas, and patterns are forming. In the case of serial killers, that would be their mark, their serial killer mark or their MO. I'm not sure where they labeled it the New England serial killer, but I think that they were thinking it was something else, but then they are now believing they're hunting down a serial killer. And we all know that there's active serial killers all over the world. A lot of them are in the US.
Yeah.
So maybe this is just one of them. But to me, it's like, what, if this was happening in LA, I mean, it'd be breaking news. But these women are invisible to the system. It's like they're starting to make the news because there's a pattern forming. And it's like that story we were talking about a couple shows ago. One of our fans of the show mentioned, excuse me, and asked us to look into a little bit about the deaths in Austin, Texas, where this lake, and I think they're up to the body count of 14.
Yeah.
And the police and the media are sort of like being shady about what they share about it. They're trying to deny the fact that it could be a serial killer based on the fact that there's different ways that these people have allegedly died. So this fan of ours has great concern, obviously,
of course,
being from that area. And it's so hard to find information on it because there really isn't any, because the media and the police aren't sharing anything. They're just writing these unfortunate deaths off as accidents or things like that, or just unsolved murders. To me, when you got 14 bodies popping up in one lake over the course of 2 years, I mean, don't you think you would check into that as being a potential dumping ground for a serial killer?
You would hope so.
Some serial killers don't kill the same way twice. It's just the way it is.
That is true. Yes, that is true. And this one is particularly interesting. And, Frankie, I just feel that, and maybe you feel different, but the way technology is now, I think the biggest part is just getting a trail, right? Just getting a trail, getting an idea who may be involved. But just like when we worked on the Gary Ridgway case, it wasn't until DNA that popped up that they actually found something that was relevant to actually get him on trial, to have him to plead guilty. But for something like this, I mean, I feel that in the year 2025, you would think that this should be done swiftly, but yet we still have serial killers. We still have these people that do these devious things. And I guess, you know what, Frankie, the more that technology advance, the more that people will find ways to
Around it.
outdo the technology.
I mean, they do have a series called 21st Century Serial Killers. So they are figuring out ways, and there's cameras everywhere. Everyone's got a camera
Everywhere.
phone.
Right.
I don't care where you live, where you think there's no cameras. There is a camera. Everyone's got cameras now. Cars are coming with them built in. So I mean, you are on camera. But the crazy thing is there are people that are still getting away with committing these serial crimes. And you know, we were talking about the show Mindhunter earlier too, where they used to call them sequence killers or multiple killers. Now they're serial killers.
Right.
And anything over 3 is considered a serial killer. Well, they're at 14 in Austin in this one lake. So we are going to definitely try to find out what we can about that. It's just, like I said earlier, I mean, Solomon and I have bantered back and forth. There's really not that much information on it, except that everyone's denying the fact that it's potentially a serial killer. So I'm coming up with this idea, Solomon. Bear with me. I might write an email to these news stations. I might write the police and request a FOIA request and try to get some information on what their findings are, what their speculations, or what they think is going on. There's got to be answers. And for me, for an entire city not to be up in arms right now trying to figure out what's going on is also bizarre, right?
It is. It is very bizarre. And I think that's great, because it is so odd that in Austin you have 14 bodies that were discovered in the same location or a similar location. It's just so odd that something like that even occurred. I mean, I'm not a detective. I'm not in law enforcement. You know,
you'd be good at it. You look like a detective.
I could be.
You got the background for it.
I know. Just I'm a bookworm. So
I'm a blockhead.
Well, I put it like this. This is a situation where if we get more attention to it, maybe that area, that part of town in Austin will actually push on it. But who knows, Frankie? Maybe they are just, wouldn't it be weird that all of this would be a coincidence? But it's so hard for me to believe that all of this is just a coincidence, that, you know, well, this one fell in or that one, you know, it wasn't because
accidental drowning and
blah, blah, accidental drownings. Right.
I'm like Leroy Jethro Gibbs on the show NCIS. I don't believe in coincidence. Something's going on. And I think there's definitely information being withheld. I believe that law enforcement is overwhelmed with what's happening. To have 14 bodies in 2 years, I don't know what's a lot and what's not a lot. One is too many. So for me, if there's 14 bodies popping up in my city and I'm a chief of police in that city, I want to know what's going on. I'm going to be out there investigating. I'm not going to keep blowing off the public saying, oh, this is just accidental death. This is just, tragedy and blah, blah, blah. There's something going on. And there are serial killers that their mark is to not have a specific mark. They kill each and every one of their victims in a different way. Why do they do that? Well, we see now it's throwing off the authorities.
Yeah.
Enough so that they're not believing there's one person responsible or two. To me, it's kind of a joke. So I'll call them out right now. Austin, shame on you. Dig into this a little bit more. We'll have to find out a way to get in touch with them or the news at least and try to get an email back. I am good at writing letters. I do have a pen pal ship with Pamela Smart that we all know about. Still waiting on her next letter. So I'll write a letter. I'll email and see if I can't find out some information. I'll probably get told to take a hike, but I'm going to try and see what happens, because There's got to be something going on there. And this New England serial
weird.
killer that's new in the news, I can't wait to find out more information on that as it comes out, because we don't have much information on it that except that they are suspecting there is a serial killer in New England.
Right.
And I'm just wondering how did they get to that point? Because they noticed similarities in the crimes. Take me to the crime scenes. I'll be able to tell you, yep, that's similar to the last one. But japers.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost depressing. And that's why sometimes I try to, throw a couple laughs in here, because there's, like I said in past shows, there's nothing sexy about what we're reporting on and what our show is about. But this is stuff people want to hear about. This is stuff people need to hear about, Solomon. Don't you agree a little bit? Like, people need to know this. You need to know where you live, who your neighbors are, what crimes are being committed in your area. When I moved across the state where I live, I did my research on the town I was moving into. How much, police presence, what kind of crimes are being committed, what the population is, the lack of good food, whatever. I did my research before I moved. People should know their surroundings. They should know what's going on in their city, their town, their village, whatever you want to friggin' call it. But yeah, so yeah, with this New England serial killer thing, I can't wait for you to dig up more information on that so we can follow up in future shows with that. This Zizians cult, I definitely want to keep the hand on the pulse with them too. I want to see what happens with them, because I'm certain we haven't heard the end of the Zizians.
Yep.
The Zizians. The Zizians.
How they figure out that
who radicalizes with kombucha and AI? I mean, really? This is just crazy, and the AI being involved in veganism.
Yeah. It was a crazy week, Frankie. To be honest, it was a crazy week. I mean, including what happened with Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania, where there was a guy that threw a cocktail Molotov into the governor's mansion, and
jeez,
and apparently the family was still there. So,
do you think maybe that was on purpose?
Come on, man.
I mean, do you think that whoever did they ever find out who threw the Molotov cocktail?
Yeah. They did. Well, there was an arrest. There is a suspect that's under arrest. We don't know if that person have done it yet, but it's alleged that this was the culprit. And from the looks of it, it didn't look like he had too much remorse on it. But I do have a very short clip of that one. And I am going to bring it.
Sing it. Or wait, bring it, don't sing it. Yeah, bring it, don't sing it. Hit the thing for a second. Joke over. Womp.
There we go.
All
so
right.
Let me do this.
Don't worry, we got an hour.
We do have an hour.
Like an hour ago.
Okay.
Come on, you non-Apple user.
Okay, here it goes.
Okay.
Breaking news, authorities saying an arsonist targeted the Pennsylvania governor's residence, setting it on fire while he and his family were asleep inside. A senior law enforcement official tells ABC News authorities are looking at whether this could have been fueled by the fact that Governor Josh Shapiro is Jewish and that the blaze was set on the first night of Passover. ABC's Rena Lloyd joins us now with the latest. Rena, what more do we know about what happened last night?
Yeah, well, Phil, certainly a lot to look into for authorities here. As you said, police are calling this an act of arson. We know that they are working swiftly at this hour to track down whoever did this. The flames broke out in the overnight hours. The governor and his family quickly evacuated as firefighters tried to get the fire under control. Officials say one part of the home was significantly damaged. Images showing broken out glass in some of the windows. Thankfully, the governor and his family, who were in a different area, escaped without injuries.
So just a couple of hours before last night was the first night of Passover. Jews all around the world celebrating at a Seder. He posts a picture of his Seder plate. What's he saying about this?
Yeah, well, this photo is obviously a big part of this investigation. A senior law enforcement official, as you mentioned, telling ABC News that they're looking into whether this attack could have been motivated by the fact that he is Jewish. The governor says he woke up at around 2 a.m. with police banging on his door, trying to evacuate him and his family. He says he is just thankful that nobody was hurt. He says he and his wife are eternally grateful to those first responders who helped them get out safely.
All right, Marina Roy, thanks so much.
Imagine making 453.
Well then, that's interesting to say the least. To have something like that happen, I'm sure we'll find out more as the story unfolds. But for it to happen on the first night of Passover, being a Jewish family, I don't want to speculate or assume. I hate doing that, but I'm looking forward to finding out more about that as things unfold, because we're going to find out. We're going to find out. Unfortunately, nobody was killed, and I think you're muted. So
I am muted, and
that was by design.
Yeah, sure. So they did arrest somebody. So, mind you, that attack happened, I believe it was a week ago. So, this they did have her arrest, and yeah, they're still investigating it. But man, it's terrible to hear that this was due to this guy's because the family was Jewish. I mean, that's messed up. I mean, it doesn't matter what their beliefs are, what their faith is, their skin color, nothing. They should live in peace, even if it was political, because at first I thought it was all like some political stuff, but
sure.
I mean, it could still be that that's the case, but regardless of whether you're red, blue, green, purple, I mean, no one should be discriminated in that sense, and it was messed up. That's the bell.
That's the bell. We used to have that bell in high school.
Yeah.
We're running out of time here, but Solomon, let's do this. So, what do you all think? Everyone out there listening, what do you all think? Are we just desensitized to this? Me specifically, if you want to use me as an example, or are we just better informed? Hit us up on Twitter. Our Twitter handles are right there on the screen at Raw Live and at MH Blueprint 61515. I'm still going to figure out what that damn number means. And hit us up there, or you can definitely send us a message if you have any questions about the show. Definitely go to info@rawlive.com and send in your questions and or show ideas if you have any. That's what emails are for, folks, and we will answer the emails. Even if we don't like your email, we will answer it. We'll respond. So, yeah. So what do you all think? Are we just sensitized, or are we doing a good job? And what would you like for us to hit up next on our future shows? So I guess we can do now, Solomon, is wrap it up here, do a little reflection. So we went from Oklahoma City in 1995 to cults to killers and political violence in 2025. Some pain, new packaging, really.
Yeah.
Where do we start? Give your final thoughts. Where do you begin, right?
I mean, I put it like this: terror is terror is terror. So, the Oklahoma City bombing was one of the worst that ever happened in U.S. history. That doesn't minimize the fact that there were other attacks that have happened afterwards, but this one was definitely a tragedy. And 30 years later, we're still being affected by it, because it shows that because of this radical perspective that Timothy McVeigh had and a group of other people that were involved, it caused this severe damage to this community and really the nation. And again, victims, people's lives lost. You had 3-month-olds, 6-month-old babies that were involved, that were taken away, and that's not right. Sure, the guy at the end of the day, he was executed in 2001. He got the needle, but Frankie,
doesn't solve anything.
It still doesn't get those children back. It still doesn't get those men and women that lost their lives.
Nope, doesn't.
And fast forward, as we look at the Zizian cult, and we look at the serial killers and all these things that's going on right now. My big thing is always just be in the moment, be in the present, love the people around you, and think about the people and think about the things that you're grateful for.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, man. What about you?
I mean, I don't know how to follow up. I don't know how to follow that, but I'll try. For me, you know me, I keep things kind of short and sweet. Being a junior in high school when the Oklahoma City bombing happened, I realized at that point how effed up this world was, and with all these radical views and differences and opinions and government being hated by groups of people. I am still not a real big fan of politics. I'm really not as understanding of the whole political arena as I should be. So I don't understand how people get so angry with things that aren't really affecting them. But apparently Mcvay and Nichols and company felt that they were connected to it somehow and they had to do something about it. And they did. As far as the governor arson attack, I mean, I want more information on that before I make my final consensus. I think there's more to it. It's not like somebody just decides to drive by the governor's mansion and throw a Molotov cocktail through the window. There's got to be a reason for everything, right? That's my opinion. There's a reason for everything. And then these Zizian characters, where do you put them on the scale of what kind of killers are they? I mean, the AI and transgender community and veganism. So there's a whole bunch of different dynamics that are in that group. So I look forward to finding out some more information on that. So I mean, that's really my final thought on it. I don't really know where else to go with those stories except they're all effed up, every one of them. And I'm glad we got an opportunity to cover those. But Solomon, I just want to tell everybody to follow us everywhere you can. We're on X, Instagram, TikTok. Solomon is our TikTok master. Let me point to him the right way.
Yes.
It's hard with the screen thing here. He's our TikTok master. We're on Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. Definitely follow us, subscribe, like, and share. And we're gonna, in the near future, we're gonna look at getting some merchandise going here. So we look forward to that.
And some merch.
But definitely join us a half hour from now at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time on our after show live. Same way you're watching us now on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and we might even add Twitch in there to see if anybody shows up on Twitch.
Who knows?
But, we never know. We could have 100 gazillion people show up there. Who knows? You never know. But we definitely want to take a minute to thank each and every one of you for being here with us tonight, and we will see our most dedicated fans in the next half hour. So until next time, everybody, thanks for being here. We'll see y'all next time or in a half hour.
Take care, everyone.
And this was brought to you by Raw Live Productions, by the way.